So what do you think? Shall we have a tier list? I wore these shoes, these heelless hooves, to Ren Fair in Canby last weekend. I wore these at the event from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now, my husband did wrap my feet into them very tightly with the sports tape here. I would not have lasted the whole day had I not had my feet and ankles bound into those shoes. I also was carrying this really gorgeous stick that I'm not supposed to swing around inside. We happen to live on some forest property right now, and my husband went out into the woods and found some saplings and cut them, and it was able to support all of my weight. I wouldn't have made it without this staff. I was leaning on it every time I stood still because taking steps is a lot easier than trying to balance on your toes just standing still. And when you're walking into Ren Fair artist booths and shops and you're looking at the art and what have you, you don't want to fall into their display and break everything. So having a stabilizing piece is non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. You've got to have a staff if you are planning on wearing hoof shoes to Ren Fair and not breaking yourself or the art that you are looking at. Alright, so terrain activity, what's the hardest thing to do in these shoes? So, believe it or not, the hardest thing to do is use the bathroom in a porta potty and squatting over a toilet on your toes is not particularly easy because you've gotta have all the balance, and I have zero balance. None of the balances belong to me. If I'm putting these, I think I have 5 items for you today. The porta potty is the worst one. F tier. Item number 2, stairs. Particularly going down stairs. The ones I was climbing at Ren Fair were bleachers for the stadium so that I could watch jousting and see the Raptors and what have you. But the bleacher stairs were metal and they have a bit of traction going on. So there is traction on the bottom of the hoof shoes, so it was a little more stable than, say, going up and down plastic stairs. The thing that is scary about going downstairs is that your foot naturally wants to balance with your heel on the step, and, well, at least for mine, my toes kind of want to reach over the edge and to have my heel primarily on the step. With the hoof shoes on, all you have is your toes. So when you're walking down the stairs, you have to be watching your toes. Also, because of the way the shoe is built, this is where all of your balance is. This is where your entire body weight goes. And this is where your heel goes. When your foot is in the shoe, this is where your heel goes. The stairs that I have been walking on with these shoes have not been as wide as the heel to the toe. So a lot of the time I was really, like, every step I was pressing the back of my foot, my heel, up against the previous step. Because if you think of the shape of a stair, like this, my foot, like, I didn't have enough space for the whole platform to stand on the step with my heel pushing against the step wall. Now, lucky for me, I had the guide rail and I had my staff, and the people behind me were really, really kind. We waited until the stadium had mostly cleared out and there was nobody on the stairs to get going. And I asked people to pass me, but they were like, no, don't worry about it. Take your time. And I had to take those stairs one step at a time, and I had to be very aware of where my feet were at all times. I'm gonna put them in F tier as well. Loose gravel. When you're walking on worn gravel path, occasionally there is gonna be an odd larger stone that trips you up. With the loose gravel though, your hoof shoe sinks and then it sinks unevenly. It's also hard with the staff because the staff goes and sinks down. So you aren't going to have your support immediately. It's delayed. You have a delayed support. I think I was the most wobbly overall on the loose gravel. That's where I was tripping the most, but not like actually going down, just kind of losing my balance for a minute, but catching myself on my staff. You just gotta go slow. I had to go slow. We were there with friends, and we had our friends split off from us because my speed was not quick. Would put that in C tier. I put that in C tier. It's not entirely impossible feeling. Number 4, loose dirt path with pine cones. So you'll want to understand that bumpy dirt ground is not that bad, but when you throw pine cones into it, that's when they get ya. That's how they get ya. You would not think a pine cone as being a world-ending terrain characteristic, but when you're walking on little round platforms, now there is traction. There is a bit of traction. There are divots in here, so it's not completely flat. So like you could step and the pine cones could go into this divot in the center and you wouldn't notice. But you have these thin lines here. This is where you're mostly resting your weight. And if you step and the pine cone is large and it goes, say here, this is where you land on it. You like rolling on the axis of the pine cone. Like, this is probably better with a visual. Okay, we'll use this little squidlet whom I got at Ren Fair. So if you stepping on the pine cone and it lands here, the shoe goes like this and you're going down. My staff saved my butt from multiple pine cone attacks. Also, my husband, who lets me hold on to its arm, will put that into C tier, same as the loose gravel path, because if you're going slow and you're watching your step and you're just taking caution, you're gonna be okay. Moderately bumpy dirt ground, no pine cones, minimal loose rocks. That's good stuff right there. It's like when we went to go get lunch, we got our butter beer. The food lines were just kind of this grassy dirt, and it wasn't super soft, and it wasn't super bumpy. It was lumpy, but it wasn't. There weren't no pine cones. There weren't any rocks. You know, pretty mild. Putting this in B tier because you can pretty much go full speed. Maybe not full speed, but you can go. It's probably the fastest besides sidewalk that you can go. Unless you are a superstar and you've been practicing and you have like the most muscular ankles and the best balance in the world. I felt stable enough in the food lines that there was a live band playing and I was loving the music and I wanted to do a little fawn jig in my costume, and I went out, I stepped out of line a little bit and I started to set, you know, do a little bit of hopping, and I almost had my moment, my 5 seconds of fame, because the people in the lines around me started to clap for me, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the best, I am living for this, and then I stepped on a bump, and I ate the dust. It was embarrassing, but I was okay. I didn't break my ankle, we're fine, but it could have been bad. It could have ended badly, so walking, yes. Dancing, dance at your own risk. B tier. Okay. Item number 5, sidewalks. This is good. Something that surprised me about walking in the hoof shoes was that I could feel a lot more of the ground than I was expecting to through those thick resin platforms. And I did notice that when I was walking in the grass and dirt, my feet hurt less than when I was walking on the pavement. But I'm still gonna put the pavement in A tier because it is the smoothest and flattest, and therefore the most hoof friendly. Like, you are not as likely to trip and stumble on the pavement as you are in the dirt. The dirt still requires some caution, and to be honest, if you're wearing these shoes, you've got to be cautious all the time. But on the pavement, I could kind of let my guard down a little bit. I was still supporting myself with my staff because it took some of that pressure off of my toes. But yeah, that's by far the easiest. Same as if you are gonna do wooden floor, linoleum, like whatever, any sort of artificial smooth flat surface, you're gonna be okay. But be careful and don't come at me if you fall, because it's not my fault. So I did have folks stopping me every couple of minutes asking me how I was walking in the shoes and how my feet were doing. I guess when you don't know how the shoe is built, it can be kind of an optical illusion. Like, where is the foot and the leg happening in this clothing, in this garment? So it's always fun to talk about it. I love to talk about things that I'm excited about, so there was not an issue for me to repeat myself a million times at Ren Fair of how I was walking. But it's true that the shoes don't have heels, so you would think balancing on your toes all day would be hard, and it is hard. There are a couple things that make it more tolerable. There is a steel plate under the arch of the foot that kind of takes your weight and distributes it into the toe. And the toes are adhered to this thick resin hoof, and they are heavy. So the steel plate draws your weight to the toe, and the toe is heavy and anchors you forward. So there's less of an urge to lean backwards onto your heels. And if your feet are bound into the shoe, that urge is even less. And it's a lot more secure than you might expect it to be. But it is a lot of weight on your toes. My feet were quite swollen when I eventually took them off. And it is a bit of a balance, because you're walking on much smaller surface area than you're used to. So there's definitely a learning curve, and it's definitely not easy. And although I did make it the full 9 hours / 10 hours that I wore them for, I was absolutely putting in a ton of effort to be wearing them all day. Probably the most active effort of any costume I've ever worn. I had to take a lot of sitting breaks. There were moments where I thought I just cannot go on walking. And I would sit down. I'd feel pretty good after a 10 to 15 minute break. 10 to 15 minutes off my feet. I'd be able to walk for a bit longer. Because I know my own limits and I know my strengths, and I know when I need to just recharge for a minute. So that might be different for you if you decide to wear them. Other question I got was, did you make those? No, I did not. I got mine from Creature Cosplay. I'm sure that there are a lot of artists who make hoof shoes, and I'm sure that they are all wonderful. I don't know. I can only speak for the ones that I've tried on. I don't know how other artists are making their shoes, but if you are going to explore different shoes, I would recommend making sure that the shoe has a steel plate under the arch, and that the hoofs are heavy and sturdy, and that there is some traction on the bottom of your hoof. The ones I got were a little bit on the pricey side. I was willing to spend my birthday money on them because I wanted to make sure that I was getting quality shoes and that I would be safe and that I would have the easiest time that I could have, although it wasn't easy per se, but it could have been a lot harder had the features that I got not been on my shoes. So I'll go ahead and link Creature Cosplay in the description in case anybody wants to go and look at her art. And the hoof shoes, if you're thinking about wearing them, be careful and have so much fun. I'm so excited for you, and I hope that next year I have a bunch of fawn buddies that I can meet up with and frolic around the Ren Fair with in our hoof shoes together. I'll be looking forward to seeing you there.